Put walls between traps. When I first set this up, my logic was simple. The enemies walk past the walls, through the channels, and they blow themselves up. But to my surprise, they attacked the walls. This turned out rather for the better, firstly because it slows them down to quite a large degree, and secondly, since the enemies have to surround the piece of wall to attack it, they're almost guaranteed to step on the mines. Having some of these traps spread around your map can seriously slow down some of the larger groups. The only downside is that they take time and resources to build, but still, it is a neat idea if you're really struggling with a certain map. Use the patrol command to clear out enemies. After you've been playing for a while, clearing the map can become a little tedious. You can make it a little easier using the patrol command. All I did here was I had my troops patrol from their starting position over and through to the enemy position. My units will now clear this area without me having to micromanage where each unit goes. In fact, in this example, I use the patrol command and I click deep into the fog of war. That way, my units, they run off and they clear away the enemies whilst at the same time reveal the area map. Also, if you hold shift, you can set waypoints for the patrols. You can see here I have them circling my altar just up until I can afford to defend it properly. Delete storage before it is destroyed. Here I have a storage area with some iron on it. Also, notice that I have 42 iron in storage up here. The enemy destroys the storage area and I lose 32 pieces of iron. Now, here is the same scenario, but notice that I have storage areas over here and that they have space on them. Before the enemy can destroy my storage area, up here I delete it, and the stored goods are transferred to the other storage areas. As a result, as you can see up here, I keep my 42 iron along with whatever else was on that storage bay. Minimize walking distances as much as possible. Put storage areas right next to resource areas. Travel time makes a massive difference in this game. As the dwellers are walking from the resource to the storage area, they are not working on creating resource. It's wasted time, and a long walk will severely damage the efficiency of a resource. See there how the storage areas are now filling up really rather quickly because there's so little travel time while the workers are active. Linking up with the last tip, I delete the storage area before they are destroyed by the enemy, which means the resources are saved and stored in a different area. The infinite trees setup. I saw online where it said that this is the infinite tree setup, which seems okay, but as you can see, it seems to take up a lot of space and it didn't quite work for my base. Here is the perfect setup that I created. You can see the foresters here and the lumberyards here, and if I speed this up, you can see that the buildings create an equilibrium. After a while, the out of tree symbol stops appearing in the top right, and as you can see, there isn't an abundance of extra trees being grown. You can see there, they are planting and cutting at the same rate. Leave a gap rather than using gates. Instead of building a gate, just leave a gap in the wall as I have done here. Also, incidentally, I added 2 towers and archers to shoot any stray enemies that approach, though it's really kind of unnecessary. I'm not sure why I brought it up. Either way, leaving a gap offers a better setup for later in the game. All you need is a gap to allow your own dwellers to get to and fro. Enemies will not try to enter through the hole. Gates are just a waste of time in my opinion. Enemies have a very small observation radius. Just to help you understand the tests I'm doing here, let me explain that archers are ever so slightly better at killing weak enemies than the crossbow units are. This is probably because the archers fire more quickly. However, with stronger enemies that have more health, the crossbow units have the advantage. So let me explain observation radius. The enemies walk past these towers and each group attacks the towers as expected. With walls around the towers, a portion of the enemies on the left keep walking on past. This is because they've been pushed out so far away from my troops and my walls that they cannot see them well enough to prompt an attack. As a result, they carry on walking towards the castle. These are even thicker walls, and again, you can see the ones who touch the walls will start to attack, but the others simply walk past. With that said, if you have a setup like these, then using guard towers is actually more effective. This is because the guard towers allow your projectile units to both see and shoot a lot further. Build a builder, 2 houses, and a lumberjack. These are the things you build in that order for every run. Don't worry too much about getting stone or a food producer right away. For your immediate needs, you're probably better off building a warehouse and granary before you even build a stone mine. Stockpiling resources is the name of the game. Build granaries and resource storage areas, and then go nuts harvesting the food, wood, and stone. This is especially true for wood because up until the time you get the third castle upgrade, it darn near powers your entire economy. Keep building granaries and resource storage areas as your stockpile grows. Firstly, because you will need this stockpile, and secondly, because you will lose resources if you are harvesting and there's no place to put them. As a side note, you don't lose soul crystals due to overfilling. You can collect as many of those as you like. How to copy and destroy. Ctrl-C allows you to copy stuff. Doing it in this way often makes the playing process a little more convenient. The destroy button is supposedly the comma button, but you can also select the building or units and then hold delete, which is a lot easier. Double-clicking allows you to select all of the units or buildings of the same type in a certain area. You then hold delete and they are all destroyed at once. Also, I do get why people think that my voice is AI generated, but thanks to my various speech impediments, the last part just took me about 7 goes, after which, yeah, it sort of sounds a little bit robotic. Hold shift when buying to buy batches rather than buying one at a time. This is very handy if you want to order several troops. I double-clicked the barracks here, I then hold shift and I keep clicking here to create all these troops. Spam out a bunch of lumberjacks to really get your wood economy going. Then, when they're all done in that area, zoom in, double-click on one of them to select all of them, and then press and hold the delete button to remove them all at once. Healers are useful in some situations. I thought healers could heal archers on towers, so I put one up here, but when the towers are attacked, it's the building that takes the damage and not the troops themselves. So I put healers on a tower, and I figured that their healing area of effect, because it's increased, they'd help my ground troops survive a little longer. So I tried putting a bunch of them on this tower so they could heal the troops below, and on the easy setting, they didn't do too bad. The best use I have found for healers is for standing armies. They're the ones you use to clear up the map. They seem to allow your units to live a little longer than they normally would. You can see here, if the healers are close enough, they can help keep your frontline troops alive a little longer. Arrange houses around a fountain. The most efficient way to set up your houses is like this. It makes the most of the space because the fountain in the middle reaches every house. When you are building it, you need to start with this type of pattern. It just makes it easier to visualize the pattern in this way. When it comes time to upgrade, you just delete these buildings here and you click to upgrade everything. The builders can each reach the upgrade, and then, obviously, once they're done, you replace the buildings you deleted with level 3 houses. Save and wait for the wave. If you are playing on the harder difficulties, you can save your game and then wait around to see exactly where the next wave is coming from. You can actually see which direction it's going to take when it walks towards your castle. Once you know this, you can reload your save and prepare to defend yourself. See, if you wait, you can see exactly where they're going to congregate and which path they're going to take. If you are even later in the play session, you can maybe even set up some bombs and traps and stuff to intercept them on the way. Burrdam Chimera units are cheap and effective. As you face the huge waves of enemies in the later stages of the game, try building a few of these and then sending them into battle. As you can see, they are pretty inexpensive. And here they are in action, and these are pretty darn effective. If you've placed them in the path of the oncoming hordes strategically, then you can do a fair amount of damage. You need a good map to win at Nightmare difficulty. Start your map, save the game, and then use your units to search around the local area and really get a good look at what's there. As you can see, this map is a pretty poor choice. There are no choke points, and there are no real good natural defensive areas. Plus, most of the key resources are surrounded by enemies. So, instead of loading, I'm going to restart and see if I can spawn a better map. If you do find a good map, pause and perhaps take the time to plan what you're going to put and where you're going to put it. Though, over time, you're probably going to delete a lot of that anyway. You often find yourself deleting and rebuilding as you find the most efficient way to use the space. The hardest difficulties have very few solutions. If we look at this map here, after you cross the ocean, here are all the difficulty options. If you play these difficulties, then you get the classic diplomacy is not an option game mechanics. If you play this or this difficulty, then you are on a very severe time limit and there are very few ways to complete the mission. For example, on this mission, you have to destroy the citadels. But if you are playing on pure insanity or worst nightmare difficulty levels, then you cannot do it by building a large army and clearing the map because the waves come too quickly and they are too large. large. Instead, you have to build a small army, as you can see here, get in, and then use a combination of sneak attacks and astral powers to destroy the buildings. Setting up your sustainable economy. The economy is primarily powered by wood because there's so much of it. During the late game, this is a renewable setup. The town hall is at level 3, so you can now build forester cabins. I've put my lumber mills over here, and just behind them is some storage. This will create wood over and over in a constant loop, which you can use and sell as you wish. If you have the space, then farms, and to a much lesser extent berries, can offer you infinite amounts of food that you can sell at your market to get wood, stone, iron, whatever. This here is a pretty good setup, especially considering that your army is powered by food. If strategically placed, the tavern can save you a lot of food. You can see here, as my tavern is being built, my dwellers consume 618 units of food per day. After the tavern is built, it goes down to consuming 514 per day. That's more than 100 units less than what it previously was. On this map, I happen to have a lot of space because it's that shipbuilding one. So in this case, my farms are powering my economy. This is where I can easily sell my food at the market without my dwellers going hungry. Eventually, you get the infinite stones and iron mines, which, again, allows you to trade for other items such as gold coins. It takes a lot of research, and it's pretty cool that they added these things into the game. It theoretically allows you to play a little longer without having to worry that all of the resources in your map will be exhausted. Some defensive setups. This setup here is perfect. It funnels enemies into this small area so that the archers can defeat them before they can get in and do some damage. This is because the enemies cannot push past each other, so they just have to sit there and wait while the archers kill them. The trouble is, getting this sort of setup is difficult, as you can see on the right, where I've had to use a different defensive tactic. This is also another great setup that I'm very proud of. It keeps enemies away from the temple, and due to the way the walls are set up, along with its distance from the castle, most enemies just ignore it. The watchtowers may seem like a waste of time and resources, but they serve two very good purposes. Firstly, building one alone will remove fog of war in that area. Secondly, if you put an archer up there, then it will fire and kill any marauding enemy or zombie, and specifically zombies because they can find their way into areas that regular enemies can't. Set up single sections of wall around the very outskirts of your settlement. This distracts and splits up the enemy, which makes them far easier to destroy. If you save, wait for the wave, and then load, you're going to know where to put your pieces of wall. The only problem is that during the middle of the game, before you have the forester building, finding and using the wood in this manner may not be the best use of your resources. Some offensive battle tips. Early game, the summon spell allows you to quickly take out enemy catapults. Horses are also good for taking down catapults. Your units bunch up, which means that many of them are simply waiting behind other units and not really doing much at all. While micromanaging your fights, you should try putting them in a formation that goes actually over the enemies. That way they're going to spread out and fight more evenly and efficiently. Build multiple gravediggers near a big death site, along with a medical facility. When the dead bodies have been picked up, you can delete the gravediggers and the hospital until you next need them again. That is, unless you're on one of the very rare cases where the battleground is always in the same place. Ideally, graveyards and gravediggers should be close to where dead bodies are, because the walking time, if it's too long, well, sometimes by the time they've collected the dead bodies, they've already turned to zombies. And also, though it may not seem obvious, do consider putting your graveyard outside of your defenses, so that if it's destroyed, the zombies aren't walking around inside of your defenses. Your first upgrade is always the easiest. Just send out your troops to explore and quickly get up enough wood and stone to perform your first upgrade. You can do it with more care than I'm doing here. My troops are heading for an untimely end. But you can maneuver your troops to quickly collect up what you need to get your first upgrade. So yeah, as soon as you can, send out your units to go and collect those resources and get the first upgrade underway as soon as possible. Buildings are disposable on the final wave. When your market is destroyed, it explodes and it kills the enemies, so it's probably a good idea to have it somewhere near your castle. Plus, as you can see here, I'm on the final wave, and I spawn the last of my Dark Knights, and somehow I still win. It would be a good lesson in not giving up if it weren't for the fact that I save so often that even if I had have lost, I would have just reloaded and tried again. Your walls will block your own catapult attacks. Set most of your siege weapons to attack the most dangerous enemy. I say this because if they attack the most nearest enemy, then in most cases they're going to end up shooting right next to the wall, and their projectile in many cases is simply going to hit the wall. If you set them so that they attack the most dangerous enemy, then when they shoot at that enemy, the splash damage is going to affect all of the enemies around it, which, as you will find, is a far more effective use of the siege weapon. 10 Quickfire tips. When you build an army, they are counted as part of your population. That is why keeping a large army is not a good idea, especially early in the game. If a soldier dies, then it's replaced as a member of your population the next morning. However, if you delete a unit, then they are added to your population right away. Just so you know, down here it tells you which day the next attack will occur, and you can see the current day up here. As your towers are destroyed, just move your crossbow units along down to the next one. This way you can just build lots of towers and have your units move along them as each one is destroyed. I don't think you should use gates, but if you do, leaving your gates open isn't so bad. You can see here the enemies funnel down in small numbers, and these are small numbers that your troops can easily destroy. Place your berry pickers in the most efficient space possible. Don't do what I did here and put them next to the berry bushes, because it doesn't make them all that more effective. As you can see, the berry huts are here next to the berries, and yet the pickers are all the way over here picking from that bush. I wasn't sure which buildings the workshop affected. Luckily, it has this green radius around it as seen here. It highlights the building it affects in green, so you can see where is the best place to put it. The knights are the best ground unit. They have a lot of health and armor to the point where regular enemies can't even do damage to them. You don't have to keep clicking the icon or pressing the Y button. If you just hold the icon or hold the Y button, then it expands out quickly as seen here. You can put troops in the castle as if it were a fortification. I didn't know this for the longest time, so I'm passing it on to you. When it comes to big bosses or big enemies, just walk them back to your base and have your heavy defenses do all of the hard work for you.